The chains were heavier than they should have been. Seraphina's wrists had gone numb an hour ago, but she kept her head down, kept her breathing steady, kept herself small the way she'd learned to do over 24 years of being told she was cursed. The stone floor of the ceremonial hall bit into her knees through her thin dress, and she could smell the silver and the restraints faint, metallic, wrong against her skin. Look at her, Luna Vivian's voice carried across the assembled pack, dripping with false sympathy. 24 years we've raised her, fed her, sheltered her, and this is how she repays us. Seraphina didn't look up. She learned not to. Looking up meant seeing the disgust in their faces, the fear, the hatred barely concealed behind politeness. She was the cursed one, the child born wrong, the one whose very first breath had killed both her parents, or so they'd told her. She was supposed to help in the kitchens today, Vivian continued, pacing in front of the pack like a performer on stage. But we found her in the West Wing, near the Alpha's private chambers, stealing. That made Seraphina's head jerk up. I wasn't silenced. Vivian's command cracked like a whip. The silver in Seraphina's chains burned hotter, and she gasped, dropping her gaze again. You were found with this. Vivian held up a small iron key, tarnished with age. Care to explain what you were doing with the key to the old dungeon? The sealed section we specifically told you never to approach? Seraphina's heart hammered against her ribs. The key. She'd found it yesterday, fallen behind a loose stone in the servant quarters where she'd slept her entire life. It had been calling to her somehow, humming with a frequency only she could hear. She'd followed that pull to the West Wing, to a door she'd never noticed before, and she'd been about to use it when the guards grabbed her. I found it, she whispered. I was just sneaking around where you don't belong. Alpha Marcus's voice was cold as he stepped forward. Vivian's mate, the pack leader who'd ruled Silvercrest for 25 years. His eyes were hard as flint. After everything we've done for you, given you a home when no one else would take the cursed child. The girl who killed her own mother giving birth, there it was. The story that had defined her entire existence. Her mother had died screaming as Seraphina entered the world, and her father had gone mad with grief, attacking the midwives before the guards put him down. A tragic tale, a cursed beginning, and Seraphina, the survivor, marked forever as the cause of it all. She'd believed it for 24 years. She was starting to think that had been a mistake. Take her to the holding cells, Marcus ordered, waving his hand dismissively. She'll spend 3 days there to think about her actions. No food, water only, 3 days. Seraphina had survived worse. She let them drag her to her feet, let them march her through the pack house toward the basement cells. But as they passed the West Wing corridor, that humming started again. Stronger now, more insistent. It seemed to vibrate through her bones, making her wolf the one she'd never been able to shift into, the one everyone said was too weak to manifest her for the first time in years. The guards threw her into a cell that smelled of mold and desperation. The door clanged shut, and their footsteps faded. Seraphina sat in the darkness, her back against the cold stone wall, and closed her eyes. The humming was still there, coming from somewhere below her, somewhere deep. She pressed her palms flat against the floor and felt it a pulse, rhythmic and steady, like a heartbeat in the earth itself. Like to heartbeats, her eyes snapped open. That was impossible. The old dungeon had been sealed for decades. Marcus said it was unstable, dangerous, that the lower levels had collapsed years before she was born. No one went down there. No one could, but something was down there. Someone. And whatever it was calling to her. Seraphina spent the first day listening. The guards changed shifts every 6 hours, their boots heavy on the stairs. They brought her water at midday and evening, sliding the tin cup through the bars without looking at her. She was used to being invisible. It made people careless. On the second day, the humming grew stronger. It was in her blood now, singing through her veins, making her restless. Her wolf paced inside her mind, agitated in a way it had never been before. Weak, they'd always called it. Dormant. But now it was awake, and it was angry. That night, when the guards changed shifts, Seraphina noticed something she'd missed before. The stones in the corner of her cell were loose, not dramatically, not obviously, but enough that when she pressed against them, they shifted. Beyond them, she could see darkness, a gap, and from that gap came the humming, clear as a bell. She looked at the cell door, looked at the sleeping guard at the end of the corridor, looked at her hands, still marked with silver burns from the chains. Then she looked at the gap in the wall and made a decision. She'd spent 24 years being obedient, being small, being cursed. Maybe it was time to see what happened when she stopped. The stones came away easier than they should have. Within an hour, she'd created a hole large enough to squeeze through. The darkness beyond smelled ancient, like earth and stone and something else. Something that made her wolf surge forward with recognition. Home, it seemed to whisper. Pack, family. Seraphina dropped through the gap and landed in a tunnel she definitely wasn't supposed to know existed. The air was cold, damp, and the humming was so loud now it drowned out her own heartbeat. She moved forward, one hand on the rough stone wall, following the sound deeper into the mountain. The tunnel opened into a wider passage, and then into a staircase spiraling down. Torches lined the walls recently lit, she realized with a jolt. Someone had been down here. Recently, regularly. The stairs went down for what felt like forever, until her legs burned and her breath came short. And then, finally, she reached a door. It was iron, thick as her arm, with runes carved into its surface that glowed faint silver in the torchlight. The key, she still had it, tucked into her dress where the guards hadn't thought to search. The cursed girl wasn't worth a thorough pat down. She pulled it out, hands shaking, and fitted it into the lock. It turned with a click that echoed like thunder. The door swung open, and Seraphina stepped into hell. The dungeon was massive, carved from living rock, with cells lining both walls. Most were empty, their doors hanging open, their floors covered in decades of dust. But at the far end, in the two largest cells, there were people. A man and a woman, both chained to the walls with silver that had burned their skin black. They were thin, so thin their bones showed through paper-white skin. Their hair hung in matted tangles. Their clothes were little more than rags, but they were alive. And when they looked up at her, she saw her own eyes staring back. No, Seraphina whispered. The word fell from her lips like a stone into water, rippling out, changing everything. No, 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 Seraphina. The woman's voice was cracked from disuse, but it was warm, so warm it hurt. Oh, my baby girl. The world tilted. Seraphina grabbed the cell bars to keep from falling. You're dead. You're both dead. You died. I killed you. No, sweetheart. The man spoke now, his voice stronger despite his condition. His eyes storm gray, the same shade as hers were fierce with love and rage. We didn't die. We've been here, 24 years, waiting for you to find us. The humming wasn't in her head anymore. It was in the air, vibrating between the three of them, a connection she'd felt her entire life but never understood. Blood calling to blood, pack calling to pack, parents calling to daughter. But they said, Seraphina's voice broke. Marcus said you died, that I killed my mother, that my father went mad. Marcus lied. Her mother's voice turned hard as diamond. He wanted our pack, wanted our territory. We were the alphas of Silvercrest, baby. You come from the purest bloodline in 5 territories. And the night you were born, the night you were supposed to be presented to the pack, he took you. He told everyone we died in an attack. He took our pack, our daughter, and he locked us down here to rot. Seraphina couldn't breathe. The air was too thick, too heavy, full of 24 years of lies crashing down around her. But someone would have known. Someone would have said something. His Beta knew. His Luna knew. The guards who brought us here knew. Her father rattled his chains, and the sound was like bones breaking. Anyone who questioned it disappeared. He killed or exiled anyone loyal to us. And he raised you as the cursed child, the unwanted burden, so no one would ever look at you and see what you really are. What am I? The question came out broken. Her mother smiled, and despite the horror of the cell, despite the silver burns and the starvation, It was the most beautiful thing Seraphina had ever seen. Your alpha-born baby, pure silver bloodline, the strongest this pack has seen in generations. And you're about to show them exactly what that means. Before Seraphina could respond, before she could process any of it, footsteps echoed in the tunnel. Heavy boots, multiple pairs, and then Vivian's voice, sharp with panic. Find her, she can't have gone far, and for the moon goddess's sake, make sure she hasn't found the lower levels. Too late, Seraphina thought. Too late for all of you. She turned from her parents' cells and faced the tunnel entrance. The guards appeared first, 3 of them, and they stopped dead when they saw her. Behind them came Vivian, her perfect composure cracking when she saw the open iron door. No, Vivian's voice was strangled. No, you weren't supposed to. How did you? The key fell behind a stone, Seraphina said calmly. Too calmly. Something was happening inside her, something vast and powerful unfurling like wings. Funny how that happened right before my 24th birthday. Almost like it was meant to be. Seraphina, listen to me. Vivian held up her hands like she was approaching a wild animal. Whatever you think you saw down here, it's not what it seems. These prisoners are my parents. Seraphina's voice didn't sound like her own anymore. It was deeper, resonant, full of command. The alphas you helped murder and replace. The pack leaders you've been slowly starving to death for 24 years while you fed me lies and silver and told me I was cursed. Vivian's face went white. You don't understand. Your parents were weak. They would have destroyed this pack with their soft policies and their lies. The word cracked like thunder, and the guards actually stepped back. Seraphina felt it then, rising from somewhere deep in her core. Power. Real power. The kind that had been suppressed her entire life with carefully measured doses of silver in her food, with chains and commands and constant reminders that she was nothing. Everything you told me was lies. Guards, restrain her. Vivian's command came out shrill. The guards moved forward. Seraphina raised her hand, not to defend, not to attack, just raised it, and they stopped, frozen, staring at her wrist where the silver burns were healing in real time, the skin knitting itself together and revealing something underneath. A mark, silver lines that swirled and curved in patterns she'd never seen before. A royal bloodline mark. Oh goddess, one of the guards whispered. She's alpha-born, Seraphina finished. Her wolf was surging now, no longer weak, no longer dormant. It was massive, powerful, clawing its way to the surface after 24 years of forced suppression. And you all knew. Every single one of you who's been in this pack for more than 2 decades. You knew what they did. The guards dropped their weapons. Just dropped them and fell to their knees. Pack instinct, older and stronger than any loyalty to Marcus or Vivian. Blood called to blood. True alpha called to pack. And Seraphina was calling now, her power radiating out in waves that made the very stones tremble. Vivian ran, turned and ran back up the tunnel, her carefully maintained dignity shattering. Seraphina let her go, let her run straight into what was coming, because the air had changed, the temperature had dropped, and from the tunnel entrance came a presence so powerful it made even Seraphina's new power feel small. Alpha King Thorn Blackwood stepped into the dungeon, and the world held its breath. He was massive, built like violence and control, with hair dark as midnight and eyes that burned gold in the torchlight. He wore the casual confidence of someone who'd never had to prove his strength because everyone already knew. Behind him came his beta and a dozen royal guards, all heavily armed. But Thorn wasn't looking at the guards or at Vivian cowering against the wall. He was looking at Seraphina, and his expression was doing something complicated between shock and recognition and fury. Who, his voice was deadly quiet, has been hiding an alpha bloodline heir in a servant's room for 24 years. Vivian made a sound like a dying animal. Thorn's gaze swept the dungeon, taking in the cells, the chains, the 2 barely alive prisoners at the back. His jaw clenched so hard Seraphina heard his teeth grind. And who has been keeping the former alphas of Silvercrest in a dungeon I specifically ordered sealed after the supposed rogue attack that killed them? Your Majesty, Vivian started, her voice shaking. This is a misunderstanding. We were protecting. Thorn's voice didn't rise, but it filled the space like thunder. You were protecting them? In silver chains? Starved to the point of death? He turned to Seraphina, and his expression softened just slightly. What's your name? Seraphina. Her voice came out steady despite everything. I was told I killed my parents at birth. I was raised believing I was cursed. 3 days ago I found a key, and tonight I found them alive. Thorn studied her face, and something like recognition flickered in his eyes. You look like your mother. She had the same silver mark, the same power. He glanced at the guards on their knees. Someone get those chains off the former alphas. Get the pack doctor down here immediately. And someone find Alpha Marcus. Now, his guards moved with military precision. Seraphina stood frozen, watching as they unlocked her parents' cells, as her mother collapsed and was caught by a guard, as her father was finally freed after 24 years. She should move, should go to them, but her legs wouldn't work. Thorn stepped closer, close enough that she could smell him pine and smoke and something wild. How much silver have they been giving you? The question caught her off guard. What? Your power just broke through. That doesn't happen naturally. That happens when suppression is suddenly removed. His eyes narrowed. They've been dosing you, probably since birth. Small amounts. Enough to keep your wolf dormant without killing you. Seraphina's stomach lurched. The tea, the special tea Vivian had given her every morning since she could remember. For your health, dear, to keep you strong. She drunk poison for 24 years and called it medicine. They took everything from me, she whispered. No, Thorn's voice was firm. They took everything from you temporarily, but you're Alpha born. True bloodline. That kind of power can't be destroyed, only delayed. He held out his hand. Come, your parents need to see you properly, and Marcus needs to answer for what he's done. Seraphina looked at his hand, looked at this Alpha King who'd walked into her nightmare and immediately started fixing it, looked at her parents being tended to by his guards, looked at Vivian still cowering against the wall. She took his hand. His skin was warm, calloused, strong, and when their palms touched, something sparked. Not the parent-child recognition she'd felt with her mother and father. Something different. Something that made her wolf sit up and take notice. Something that made Thorn's eyes flash gold for just a moment before he controlled it. Mate, her wolf whispered. Oh no, Seraphina thought. Can you walk? Thorn asked, either unaware of the connection or choosing to ignore it. The stairs are. I can walk. Seraphina pulled her hand back, trying to ignore the way her skin still tingled where he touched her. I've been walking my whole life, up and down stairs, serving people who lied to my face. I can manage a few more. Something that might have been approval flickered in his eyes. Good. Then let's go remind your pack who you really are. They went up. All of them. Seraphina beside Thorn, her parents carried on stretchers by his guards, Vivian dragged along by 2 royal soldiers. The journey back through the tunnels felt different now. She wasn't sneaking. She wasn't hiding. She was walking beside the Alpha King, and power was radiating from her in waves that made the very air shimmer. They emerged into the pack house to find Marcus in the great hall, pacing like a caged animal. He spun when the doors opened, and his face went through a journey of expressions: confusion, recognition, horror, and finally desperate calculation. Your Majesty. He dropped into a bow that looked more like a collapse. What an unexpected honor. I wasn't informed you were visiting. If I had known, you would have made sure I didn't find the dungeon. Thorn's voice was conversational, which somehow made it more terrifying. The dungeon where you've been keeping the rightful alphas of Silvercrest prisoner for 24 years. The dungeon where you hid the evidence of your coup. The dungeon where you left 2 of the finest pack leaders I've ever known to rot while you played ruler. Marcus's face went gray. I can explain to your pack. Thorn gestured, and his guards threw open the great hall doors. Everyone, now. Pack meeting. And someone wake the doctor because the former alphas need immediate medical attention. The pack filed in slowly, confused and worried. Seraphina stood beside Thorn and watched them come. She recognized all of them. The baker who'd always snuck her extra bread. The seamstress who'd repaired her clothes without complaint. The warriors who'd sneered at her in training. The children who'd been taught to fear her. All of them staring now, seeing her beside the Alpha King, seeing the silver mark glowing on her wrist, seeing her parents being carried in on stretchers. Old Mara, the pack's eldest member, took one look at Seraphina's parents and burst into tears. Goddess above, Liana, Thomas, you're alive, the whispers started then, racing through the pack like wildfire. Thorn let them talk for exactly 30 seconds. Then he raised his hand, and the hall fell silent. 24 years ago, Alpha Thomas and Luna Liana were attacked on the night their daughter was born. You were told they died. You were told their daughter was cursed, weak, the cause of their deaths. You were told Marcus stepped up to lead in the crisis. He paused. You were told lies. He gestured to Seraphina's parents. Your true alphas have been imprisoned beneath your feet for 24 years, starved, tortured, left to die slowly while Marcus and Vivian ruled in their place. He turned to Seraphina, and their daughter was raised as a servant, poisoned daily with silver to suppress her power, told she was cursed so no one would look too closely, so no one would see what she really is. Seraphina felt every eye in the hall turn to her, felt their shock, their disbelief, their slowly dawning horror. Show them, Thorn said quietly. Show them what they tried to bury. Seraphina didn't know how she knew what to do, but something inside her did. Something that had been waiting 24 years for this moment. She closed her eyes, reached for that vast power unfurling in her chest, and let go. The shift hit her like lightning, like coming home, like breathing for the first time. Pain and ecstasy and rightness all rolled into one overwhelming wave. She felt her bones reshape, her muscles expand, her senses sharpened to impossible clarity. She felt power flood through her veins, real and undeniable. When she opened her eyes, she was standing on 4 legs instead of 2, and the wolf looking back at her from the polished shields on the wall was silver, pure, shining silver, with eyes that glowed like molten steel. The pack gasped as one. An alpha wolf, someone whispered. She's an alpha, she's more than that, old Mara said, her voice carrying despite her age. She was staring at Seraphina with something like wonder. That silver coat, those eyes, that's not just alpha bloodline, that's royal bloodline, the kind that only appears once every 100 years. Seraphina shifted back, the transformation easier this time, natural in a way nothing in her life had ever been natural. She stood naked in the center of the hall for exactly 3 seconds before one of Thorn's guards threw her a cloak. She wrapped it around herself and met her pack's eyes. They lied to you, she said. Her voice carried, full of command she'd never been allowed to use. They lied to all of us. And I want to know who else knew. Silence, thick and choking. Then a guard stepped forward, one of the older ones, gray at his temples. He dropped to his knees. I knew, Alpha. I was there the night of the coup. Marcus threatened my family. Said he'd kill my mate and cubs if I spoke. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Another voice. A woman from the kitchens. I suspected. The way they kept you isolated. The way you were never allowed to train properly. But I thought maybe I was imagining things. More confessions. More guilt. More pack members who'd known or suspected or turned a blind eye because it was easier than challenging the alphas. Seraphina listened to all of it, feeling Thorn's steady presence at her side, feeling her parents' attention from where the doctor was examining them. Finally, when the confession stopped, she turned to Marcus and Vivian. They were both on their knees now, surrounded by guards. Vivian was crying, mascara streaming down her face. Marcus was stone-faced, defiant even in defeat. Do you have anything to say? Seraphina asked. You would have been weak, Marcus spat. Your parents were too soft, too forgiving. They would have let rogues walk our borders, would have made alliances with packs that should have been conquered. I did what needed to be done. You tortured 2 innocent people for 24 years. I secured this pack's future. You stole my life. I gave you a life. Marcus surged to his feet only to be shoved back down by the guards. You think you would have survived childhood otherwise? You think being Alpha's daughter is easy? I protected you from that burden, made you strong through hardship, made you stop talking. The command came out before Seraphina could think about it, laced with alpha power that made Marcus's jaw snap shut mid-sentence. She stared at him, at this man who'd shaped her entire existence, and felt nothing. No rage, no pain, just a cold, clear certainty. You took everything from me, she said quietly. My parents, my pack, my power, my identity. 24 years of my life, built on lies and poison and pain. She stepped closer. And you did it because you wanted power, not to protect anyone, not to make the pack stronger. You wanted to be Alpha, and you didn't care who you destroyed to get it. She turned to Thorn. What's the punishment for this? For what they've done? Thorn's expression was carved from ice. Traditionally, death. But as the Alpha King, I defer to the injured party. Your parents are the rightful Alphas. It's their choice. All eyes turned to the stretchers where Seraphina's parents lay. Her mother was awake, alert despite her condition. Her father had his hand wrapped around his mate's, holding on like she might disappear. What do you want, baby? Her mother's voice was steady. They're your years too. Your life they stole. What do you want us to do with them? Seraphina looked at Marcus and Vivian, looked at these people who'd had absolute power over her entire existence, who'd made her kneel, made her small, made her believe she was cursed. Exile, she said. Strip them of their ranks, take their wolves, send them out as rogues with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Let them spend the rest of their lives knowing what it's like to have everything taken away. To be powerless, to be nothing, Vivian sobbed. Marcus went white. Are you sure? Thorn asked quietly. That's a mercy they don't deserve, I know. Seraphina smiled, and it wasn't kind. But I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it for me, because killing them would be quick. This way, they get to live with what they did, every single day. For the rest of their lives, her mother laughed. It came out cracked and broken, but genuine. That's my daughter. Smart and vicious in all the right ways. Thorn nodded to his guards. You heard the Alpha. Strip them and escort them to the border. Make sure they understand if they ever set foot in pack territory again. The mercy ends. They dragged Marcus and Vivian out. Seraphina watched them go and felt 24 years of weight lift from her shoulders. The pack stood in shocked silence until old Mara stepped forward. She walked straight to Seraphina, dropped to her knees, and pressed her forehead to Seraphina's hand. Forgive us, Alpha, she whispered. Forgive us for not seeing, for not saving you. One by one, the pack followed, kneeling, submitting, not to Marcus's stolen authority, but to true bloodline, true power, true leadership. Seraphina looked at her parents. Her mother nodded. Her father smiled through tears. I'm not your Alpha, Seraphina said, her voice carrying across the hall. Not yet. My parents are still alive, still the rightful leaders of this pack. When they're recovered, when they're ready, we'll decide what comes next together. She paused. But I promise you this: no more lies, no more secrets, no more ruling through fear. This pack was built on honor and strength and family, and that's what we're going to be again. The pack howled their approval, the sound echoing through the hall and out into the night. Thorn stepped beside her as the pack began to disperse, chattering excitedly, the atmosphere shifting from horror to hope. That was well done. You're a natural leader. I had good teachers. Seraphina gestured to her parents. Even if I didn't know it, about that, Thorn's expression shifted, became more serious. Your parents are going to need months to recover, maybe longer. Someone needs to lead the pack in the interim, and I'd like to suggest me. The word came out flat. You want me to be temporary Alpha while they heal. I want you to learn to be Alpha, Thorn corrected. You've got the power, you've got the bloodline, but you've never been trained, never been taught how to actually lead. He paused. I'd like to take you to the capital, train you properly, let you learn from the best Alphas in 5 territories. When your parents are ready to retire and they will want to retire after what they've been through, you'll be ready to take over. It was logical, practical, the right move for the pack. It was also terrifying. How long? Seraphina asked. 6 months, maybe a year, and my parents will have the best care I can provide. Here, where they're comfortable, with their pack around them. Thorn's expression softened. I'm not taking you away from them, Seraphina. I'm making sure you can protect them and your pack properly. Seraphina looked across the hall to where her parents were being carefully loaded onto better stretchers. Her mother caught her eye and smiled, nodded, gave permission. Okay, Seraphina said. I'll go, I'll learn, but I'm coming back. This is my pack, my home, and I'm never losing it again. I wouldn't expect anything less. Thorn held out his hand again. Welcome to the beginning of your real life, Alpha Seraphina. She took his hand, felt that spark again, stronger this time, felt her wolf recognize his wolf, felt the mate bond beginning to form, delicate as spider silk but strong as steel. Oh, she was in trouble, but for the first time in 24 years, it was the good kind of trouble. 6 months later, Seraphina stood in the training arena at the capital, watching the sun rise over the mountains. Her body ached from yesterday's combat training. Her mind was full of new information about pack law, territory management, and diplomatic relations. Her power had grown exponentially, channeled and shaped by the best teachers in the kingdom, and her mate bond with Thorn had become impossible to ignore. She'd resisted it at first, told herself she had too much to learn, too much to prove, told herself she didn't have time for romance or politics or anything that complicated her path back to her pack. But Thorn had been patient, present. He trained beside her, eaten beside her, existed in her space with the kind of steady reliability that made her wolf purr with contentment. And eventually, she'd stopped fighting it. You're thinking too loud, Thorn's voice came from behind her. I can hear you from across the compound. Seraphina smiled without turning around. That's called using the mate bond. I thought you said we should practice with it. I said you should practice opening it to me, not broadcasting your anxiety to half the kingdom. He stepped beside her, close enough that their arms brushed. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. That's what scares me. Thorn was quiet for a moment. Then, your parents are thriving. The last report said your father's been helping reorganize the guard rotation and your mother's been teaching the young wolves hunting techniques. The pack's never been stronger, I know. You've mastered every training exercise I've given you. The other alphas respect you. The pack leaders who visit ask about you specifically. I know, you've earned your place. Not because of your bloodline, because of your work. I know that too. Then what? I'm scared that if I'm happy, it'll get taken away. The words came out raw. 24 years, Thorn. 24 years of being told I was nothing, of being small and scared and cursed. And now I have everything. My parents, my pack, my power. You. She finally turned to look at him. What if I wake up and it's all gone again? Thorn's expression did something complicated. Then he reached out, gentle despite his size, and cupped her face in his hands. It won't be. You can't promise that. I can promise that I'll fight beside you to keep it. I can promise that your pack will fight beside you. I can promise that you're not the helpless girl in chains anymore. You're Alpha Seraphina, silver bloodline, and you're strong enough to hold onto what's yours. His thumbs brushed her cheekbones. And I can promise that I'm not going anywhere, ever. Mate bond or not, I chose you. I'm choosing you. Every day, Seraphina felt tears prick her eyes. That's not fair. You're not supposed to be good with words. I'm an alpha king. I'm good with everything. He was smiling now, soft and private. Except maybe telling you I love you. I'm still working on the timing for that. Her breath caught. Thorn, too soon. No, she laughed, surprising herself. Perfect timing actually. Good. He leaned down, pressed his forehead to hers. Because I do love you, even when you're broadcasting anxiety at dawn. Even when you're terrifying my best warriors in the training ring, even when you're being stubborn about taking breaks, I love you too. The words felt strange and right all at once. Even when you're being overprotective. Even when you're making me run combat drills until I'm dead on my feet. Even when he kissed her, cut off whatever she was about to say with the kind of kiss that made her forget her own name. When he pulled back, both their eyes were glowing gold. When are you going to let me complete the bond? Thorn asked quietly. You keep putting it off. I wanted to wait until I went home, until my parents could be there, and now? Now I think. Seraphina paused, feeling something shift in the air, a familiar pull, like the humming that had led her to her parents' dungeon. She turned toward the arena entrance. Now I think we have visitors. 2 wolves padded into the training ground, one white as fresh snow, one gray as storm clouds. They shifted mid-stride, and suddenly her parents stood there, healthy and whole and beaming. Surprise, her mother said. Seraphina was running before she realized she'd moved, crashed into them both, all 3 of them laughing and crying at once. What are you doing here? You're supposed to be resting. We've been resting for 6 months, her father said, his voice strong and clear. We're fine, better than fine, and we wanted to see our daughter, see how she's been doing. Check up on her mate, her mother added with a grin at Thorn. Make sure he's treating her right. I assure you. Thorn started. We know. Her father walked over, and the 2 alphas assessed each other for a long moment. Then her father smiled and held out his hand. You've done well with her, better than I could have hoped. She did the work herself, Thorn said, shaking his hand. I just pointed her in the right direction and fell in love with her in the process, that too. Good. Her mother joined them, looking between Seraphina and Thorn with knowing eyes. Because we came for another reason. We're retiring, officially. We've spent 24 years fighting to survive. We'd like to spend the rest of our lives actually living. Seraphina's heart stopped. Retiring? But the pack needs their true alpha. Her father's expression was serious now. You, sweetheart. It was always going to be you. We were just keeping the seat warm until you were ready. He looked at Thorn. She's ready now, isn't she? She's been ready for months. Then it's decided. Her mother took Seraphina's hands. We're passing leadership to you. There'll be a ceremony. The pack's been preparing for weeks. Everyone's coming. All the allied packs. The whole kingdom, she grinned. It's going to be quite the party, and after, her father added with a meaningful look at Thorn, maybe another ceremony? Perhaps a mating ceremony? Seraphina felt her face heat. Thorn laughed. We'll see, she managed. One life-changing event at a time, but when Thorn took her hand, when his fingers laced through hers and the mate bond sang between them, she knew the answer was yes. Knew it had been yes for months. Knew that the girl who'd spent 24 years in chains had found the person who'd spend forever helping her stay free. The ceremony was 3 weeks later. The pack grounds were transformed, covered in silver decorations that caught the moonlight like stars. Every allied pack sent representatives. The Alpha King's Council attended. Even wolves from territories Seraphina had only heard of in stories showed up to see the Alpha who'd been stolen as a baby and found her way home. Seraphina stood in the center of the ceremonial circle, wearing traditional Alpha regalia, her silver wolf visible beneath her skin. Her parents stood on either side, both healthy now, both proud. Thorn watched from the crowd, his eyes never leaving her. The pack elder old Mara, who'd lived to see this moment, stepped forward with the ceremonial blade. Do you, Seraphina, daughter of Thomas and Liana, blood of the silver line, accept the responsibility of Alpha? Do you swear to protect this pack with your life, to lead with wisdom and strength, to honor the bonds of family and duty? I do. Her voice carried across the assembled wolves. Do you accept the burden of truth? To never hide who you are, never diminish your power, never let fear make you small? I do. Then by the power of the moon goddess and the will of your pack, I name you Alpha Seraphina of Silvercrest. May your reign be long and your judgment true. The elder made a small cut on Seraphina's palm. Blood welled up, silver bright in the moonlight. She pressed her hand to the ceremonial stone at the center of the circle, the one that had held the handprints of every alpha before her. The stone blazed with light. Power rushed through her, ancient and vast, connecting her to every pack member, every inch of territory, every wolf who'd ever called Silvercrest home. She felt her parents' pride, her pack's devotion, and underneath it all, stronger than anything else, she felt Thorn's love through the mate bond. The pack howled. The sound was deafening, joyful, full of hope. When the ceremony ended, when the celebration began, Thorn found her at the edge of the crowd. "How does it feel, being alpha?" "Like coming home," Seraphina said. "Like everything I went through was leading to this moment." It was. He pulled her close, and she let herself lean into his strength. "You've reclaimed everything they tried to take from you. Your name, your power, your pack, your life, almost everything." She looked up at him. "There's still one thing missing. Oh, I haven't officially accepted my mate." She smiled at his sharp intake of breath. "I thought maybe we could fix that. Tonight? In front of everyone, Seraphina, unless you've changed your mind about wanting to be tied to a formerly cursed servant girl for the rest of your life?" "Never." The word came out fierce. "I've never been more sure of anything than bite me, Alpha King. Make it official. Make it permanent. Make it real." Thorn's eyes blazed gold. "Here, where better? In front of both our packs, with my parents watching, with the moon goddess as witness." She tilted her head, exposing her throat. "I'm not ashamed of you, of us. I want everyone to know you're incredible." Thorn's voice was rough with emotion. "And you're mine, yours," she agreed. He bit down, and the world exploded in gold and silver light. The mate bond snapped into place fully, completely, irrevocably. Seraphina felt Thorn's soul intertwine with hers, felt his love and loyalty and absolute devotion, felt herself become part of something bigger, stronger, eternal. When he pulled back, his mark glowed on her throat. Her mark appeared on his in response. The packs erupted in cheers. "Well," her mother said from somewhere nearby, laughter in her voice, "I suppose that answers the question about a second ceremony." "Guess so," her father agreed. Seraphina ignored them all, pulled Thorn down for a kiss that tasted like moonlight and forever, felt him smile against her lips. "Think we can sneak away?" he murmured. "I'm the alpha now. I don't sneak." She grabbed his hand. "I delegate. And I'm delegating party hosting to my beta for the next few hours." "Where are we going?" "Somewhere private, where I can show you exactly how much I love you without an audience." Thorn's expression turned predatory. "Lead the way, Alpha." She did. Out of the celebration, through the pack house, to the Alpha's quarters that were now officially hers. Their bed, she was already thinking of it as theirs, was massive, covered in furs and blankets that smelled like pack and home. What happened next was private, sacred, between mates only. But much later, wrapped in Thorn's arms, Seraphina stared at the ceiling and let herself feel it all. The happiness, the peace, the rightness of being exactly where she belonged. "I love you," she whispered into the darkness. "I love you too." Thorn's arms tightened around her. "My alpha, my mate, my everything. Think we'll have pups?" "Eventually. When you're ready." "No rush. I want 3, maybe 4. We'll have as many as you want, and they'll know who they are from day one. No lies, no secrets. No one will ever make them feel small. Never," Thorn promised. "They'll be raised knowing they're loved, wanted, perfect exactly as they are." Seraphina smiled in the darkness. "Good, that's good." She fell asleep like that, safe and warm and whole. And if she dreamed of silver wolves running through moonlit forests, of children laughing, of a future bright with possibility, well, that was between her and the moon goddess. 3 years later, Seraphina sat in the Alpha study with her daughter on her lap. Little Luna, named for the grandmother who'd survived impossible odds, was playing with a wooden wolf toy, babbling happily. Outside, the pack was thriving. The territory had expanded, alliances had been formed, and Silvercrest was known throughout the kingdom as a pack of honor, strength, and unwavering loyalty. Thorin entered with their son balanced on his hip. Kale JRB was the perfect image of his father, all dark hair and serious eyes. He reached for Seraphina immediately. Mama, hi baby, she took him, somehow managing both children with practiced ease. Did you have fun with daddy? Trained, Kale JRB said proudly. He was only 2, but already showing signs of alpha power. He shifted for the first time today, Thorin said, pride evident in his voice. Perfect form. Gray wolf with silver paws, just like Grandpa, just like Grandpa. Luna tugged on Seraphina's sleeve. Story, what story do you want? Cursed princess. Seraphina laughed. Somehow the tale of her childhood had become her daughter's favorite bedtime story. Again? Don't you want to hear about the brave knight or the magic forest? No, cursed princess who wasn't cursed at all. All right. Seraphina settled both children more comfortably. Thorin sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. Once upon a time, there was a girl who everyone said was cursed. They told her she was nothing, that she'd killed her parents, that she had no power. But do you know what? They lied, Luna said gleefully. They lied. Because the girl wasn't cursed at all. She was special, strong, powerful. She just didn't know it yet. And then she found Key. Kale JRB added. He'd heard this story 100 times too. That's right. She found a key, and it led her to the truth. And do you know what the truth was? Both children shook their heads even though they knew. The truth was that she'd always been exactly who she was supposed to be. An alpha, a leader, someone powerful enough to change everything. Seraphina kissed Luna's head, then Kale's. And that's the lesson. No one can make you small unless you let them. No one can curse you unless you believe them. You are exactly who you're meant to be. Always. And then she met the king, Luna said, and married him. Kale agreed, and lived happily ever after. Thorin finished, pressing a kiss to Seraphina's temple. The end. The children cheered. Seraphina looked at her mate, her pups, her life that had been built from ashes and lies and pain, looked at what she'd become despite or maybe because of everything she'd survived. Not the end, she corrected softly. Just the beginning. Outside, the moon rose over Silvercrest territory, silver and bright and full of promise. And somewhere in the night, wolves howled, not in mourning or fear or pain. Enjoy! Thank you so much for listening to my story. Where are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. I love hearing your thoughts. And if you'd like to support me, please subscribe. It's free and it helps more people hear these stories.